welcome to a special bonus episode of the Pinch to Zoom podcast. I am actually Gabe this time.
You're always Gabe, but you're doing the intro this time.
But I'm doing the intro because I figured this is my episode. I'm taking the reins now. The a7S III, I've been waiting 5 years for this. Not quite 5 years. 4 years and 342 days. Actually, technically, a little less than that. But who really cares? It's here today. It just launched. A lot of the specs leaked out online. Stetson, have you already pre-ordered? I've pre-ordered.
I canceled my Canon EOS R6 pre-order, and I pre-ordered the Sony Alpha a7S III mirrorless camera because this thing is totally hype.
I think we've gotten a little ahead of ourselves, right? Because we kind of started at the ending, and I think we need to start at the beginning.
Well, I think the ending is almost all you need to know is that people are scooping this up.
Thank you guys for listening.
You should buy it.
That's really it. We'll be back next time with some other episode or bonus episode. Who really knows? No, let's start at the beginning. Okay, so for people who don't know, the a7S II was the previous camera to this miraculous unicorn that just appeared. And the a7S II launched in September 2015, and it really changed the game because the S stood for sensitivity, and not because this camera had good emotions, and was good at like listening and stuff like that. No, it's because this camera had a 12 megapixel full frame sensor and could shoot with ISOs up to like 400,000 and still be usable. Yeah, it'd be a little grainy, but it's compared to what you can do on other cameras where they cap off at like 50,000 ISO. Yeah, it basically revolutionized the mirrorless camera industry and really videography for like the whole industry.
What you could do with low light was incredibly impressive with the a7S II. And Gabe, when we did our full frame versus APS-C camera debate, you took the full frame side. You were a huge proponent for larger pixels on a sensor. That is exactly what a7S II delivered, and that is exactly what a7S III continues to deliver. So what did Sony do with this new sensor in the a7S III?
So the interesting thing, is that we just saw and we just had a bonus episode about the Canon EOS R5 and R6. Both of those cameras, you had the R6 coming in, the cheaper one, kind of like an a7 III type camera where it's that mid-range in between super high resolution photography and the geared towards videography. And that was a 20 megapixel sensor. And then the R5 had a 48 megapixel sensor.
45 megapixel
sensor, sorry. And now you have Sony coming in at a completely different, kind of like, they're just going, all right, you're going to do that, Canon. We're going to come back here, do what we do best, and just do a purely focused video mirrorless camera. So it only has a 12 megapixel sensor still.
12.1 megapixel sensor.
Don't forget that 0.1 extra.
And
that is very important.
Actually a brand new sensor, which I think is why this camera took so long for Sony to release and develop.
It is. Do you have the specific jargon they use to describe that sensor?
It is a new Exmor R CMOS sensor that is backside illuminated, and this thing is delivering the holy grail of specs, what all videographers are wanting. You have 15 stops of dynamic range. You're getting 10-bit 422 recording on all video modes, and you can record up to 4K at 120 frames per second. This is just the dream come true. And I'll keep on spewing out amazing facts. Autofocus works in all video recording resolutions and frame rates. And this is just the dream. This is the dream.
Yeah, so from a specs front, the video, they capped it off at 4K. It's because they have that 12 megapixel sensor. So I think this is actually more, like what I want. Granted, you will have people who will opt for cameras that have 6K or 8K, depending on what type of work they're doing. If you're doing more studio work and you don't need that low light capability, or you're doing something with VFX where you want that extra information, yeah, you'll opt for the higher resolution. But for people who are, run and gun shooters like myself and, don't want to have to carry a bunch of lights around, this is like having a full lighting kit in your pocket, because that capability to just drop that ISO or ramp the ISO up, and still get very usable video quality is incredible. So yeah, you said 4K 120 FPS. That's awesome. And it's going to be at 10-bit 422, which is incredible. I had heard rumors before that it was going to cap at 4K 60 with the 10-bit 422, but it looks like They completely revamped the whole UI of the menu system for one. But the way
we should almost like just dive into that. Like,
well, it's kind of hard to describe, but the way it works though is that now instead of having specifically assigned frame rates to recording modes and stuff you had before, now you can like individually select, this is how fast I want to record frame rate, this is how much resolution I want to have, this is the recording codec, like 4-bit 222, or I want to 10-bit 422, or maybe you want 10-bit 420 or 8-bit 42, like, and depending on what you're shooting, that, you know, if I'm shooting just something for like Instagram, I'll shoot like super lower quality so I don't take up a bunch of space. But if I'm shooting something, you know, for a screen or YouTube that I really want to be good quality, I'm gonna shoot the highest quality possible.
Sony also introduced their new XAVC S codecs and HS codecs. So the HS is for recording in the H.265 video codec. So you're going to get
super high efficiency.
High efficiency. You're going to get greater colors at a just a better efficiency codec. So it looks like it's recording.
But that's not their highest capability codec.
Yeah,
right?
It is not. They can go up to what is it?
600, I think. Isn't it 600 megabits per second?
Yeah, 600 megabits per second. Is that for the RAW? Is that what you're talking about?
No, there's no. I don't think there's any internal RAW recording.
There's no, but it's external. Yeah, here we go.
You can do external RAW. Internally, to do the 4K 120 frames per second, 10-bit 422. Gosh, these numbers are so long and stuff. But to do that, you have to have the new CF Express Type A cards.
Yeah,
so that's the other thing about this camera. 2 card slots on the side. Both slots accept both CF Express Type A and SDXC cards. You can do almost all the recording modes with just an SDXC card. So that's really awesome. But if you want to get those super higher rate recording modes and you want to get, I think, a 1,000 image RAW buffer,
that's insane.
You can use this new card, which costs about $400. Sony is the only one that has these new Type A type cards. The SanDisk doesn't have them. You know, no one else has them. So for right now, you have to order with Sony. You can pre-order it, add it on to the $3,500 price tag, $3,846. So this is a little more expensive than I'd want to pay for a card, but they are like the bleeding edge of tech when it comes to memory cards.
Yeah, so you actually have to buy the card, and you have to buy the new card reader for $112. So Sony is kind of adding on a few extras here, but still, it'll work with both your regular SD cards that you have. You only really need the new cards if you want the higher end recording modes, which for some people, that's a no-brainer. They're going to pick them up. And I think the other big thing, which everyone kind of expected, but it's using Sony's E-mount. So this camera right off the bat works with 57 lenses already available from Sony, and of course with all the other lenses.
Wasn't that a no-brainer?
That was absolutely no-brainer, but I think it's just so nice to already have all this glass.
Let's talk about the big thing for you, though, right? What is that?
The flip-out screen.
Yeah, there we go.
And, all right, I mean, this is just a huge area.
You have to edit what you said. The flip-out what screen?
Touch screen.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh my
Actual
gosh.
touch screen.
I'm so excited. This basically changed the game for me. So Sony introduced a flip-out, fully articulating touch screen for the a7S III. Not only is the menu system redesigned, but you can physically touch the menu items. You can scroll. You can just tap to do what you want.
Well, can you scroll?
Yeah, you can scroll.
Okay,
I saw
really
a video.
Awesome.
It's like you're using your smartphone screen interface. It is exactly what I wanted, hopefully what many other people wanted as well.
Yep.
And not only can you use this screen to view yourself while you're vlogging or use it to compose your shots, but you can tap to focus while you're recording, even at 4K 120 frames per second. Again, autofocus working in all video modes across all resolutions and frame rates. It's just unbelievable what Sony packed into this camera.
Now, the big thing I think also is we did talk about that UI change. And I don't know if you have experience with it. I'm going to guess not. But I tried out the Nikon cameras last fall, the Z6.
Okay.
And I will say, I'm trying to think about Canon menu systems as well. This is more of a rip-off of Nikon menu systems.
I almost want to say Fujifilm, to be honest.
Fuji a little bit as well, and Panasonic too, but I've used a couple Nikon cameras, and the idea of having that side menu where you can go in and scroll through, like that's a direct rip-off of Nikon.
I'm okay with it, though. I'm
okay with it. When I used that Nikon camera, the one thing I liked was the menu system.
It's more consistent, it's better, it'll be easier to use, and Gabe, like you were mentioning, you can just go in, select each individual setting you want for your recording, frame rate, bit depth, and all of that. I think what's exciting is Sony will now keep your settings for photo separate from the settings you have for video. So not only do you get 3 customizable settings in the dial, but you can keep your settings separate from the video mode and the photo mode.
Doesn't this seem kind of like what Sigma did with the FP?
I think it is what Sigma did with the FP, and I think we also saw this with Fujifilm with the X-T4, where they were keeping those modes very distinct and separate.
Yeah, true. That's kind of a growing trend we've seen in this mirrorless camera, market. Now, another big feature, we pretty much covered all the specs. Like the specs were all leaked right like from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess one more thing. It is 759 point autofocus points if you really care about that much. And the EVF, which it's crazy how they're even caring about the electronic viewfinder because who really uses that for video, but it's technically 9.44 million dot OLED screen. So for those who really cared about that stuff,
I think that's very comparable to what we're seeing on other cameras as well.
Yeah.
And
so no, but what I was going to say is the HDMI out.
Yeah, this is huge.
This is literally
it's full-size HDMI out.
Yeah.
And Gabe, what does that allow us to do? It's see our footage, right?
Well, basically, for me, this basically just allows you to not have that tiny little port and the tiny little plug that I constantly worry about, like bending or breaking off. And oh my god, it's just I literally every time I'd plug in, I would just have a heart attack. Like, please, 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 please do not break, snap off, or something like that. So this allows it to be a lot more stable, a lot more secure plug-in, and also transfer a lot more info, I think, right?
Yeah, and so with the extra information that it can transfer, you can record externally at 16-bit RAW recording at 4.2K resolution up to 60 frames per second. Now that said, I don't think there's any external recorder currently available that can do that, but it's still nice to have that flexibility and headroom.
What was the frame rate again?
Up to 60 frames per second.
Okay, yeah, I'm not really. I think the Atmos Ninja probably can.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they're ready for it yet.
They might need a firmware upgrade, probably, is my guess.
I also want to mention the autofocus system that Gabe mentioned has 92% coverage. Again, it will work all the time. And if you are shooting at 4K 120 frames per second, you are going to get a 10% crop on the image. Interestingly, Sony also introduced their new Stabilization Mode, which also incurs, I believe it's a 10% crop if you choose to enable that. They pulled this over from the ZV-1, which a lot of people liked. Unfortunately, that camera had the fixed lens, so it punched in even closer and made the ZV-1 less ideal for vlogging. However, with the a7S III, boom, you can slap on a super wide angle lens and not only get smooth footage, but the wider shot that you're looking for while you're vlogging, and you can see yourself on the gorgeous new flip out screen.
Now, the interesting thing, I think, is also, you were mentioning the stabilization, right?
Yes.
So I'm just looking at the comparison. A7S II, 4.5 stops. A7S III was 5 stops. This is now 5.5 stops with the 5-axis in-body stabilization. I think you can get more with the lenses when you add it.
Yeah, with the stabilized lenses as well, yes.
And interestingly, also looking at a comparison that B&H has a nice one up on their site between the 3 cameras, the new A7S III is using the same battery as the A7 III. So that's the
perfect.
NP-FC100. I know I have 2 of those at least, so I'm all set to go and make an easy transfer over.
This also has the USB Type-C input for charging the battery in the camera.
Hallelujah, right?
I mean, do we know? I think that's the only way to charge the battery. There's not going to be another way to do that.
There'll be the external if you buy an external charger. Like
Unfortunately, that is another add-on. The one thing that wasn't covered on this camera that I am very perplexed about, well, battery life wasn't covered. It was also interesting in the main event, Sony didn't announce the price. Like, the live stream just ended. They ended with, like, slides and slides and slides of bullets, and then no price.
I was already on B&H pre-ordering by that time. I'd stopped watching the live stream by about
I don't
10
need
minutes
this anymore.
No.
Jeez.
The interesting thing, though, they did announce, actually, was this, and I think it kind of get glossed over because it's not the main thing, but they announced the Sony XLR oh gosh, this name is insane, Sony.
I know what you're talking about.
K3M dual channel digital XLR audio. Basically what it is, it's this thing that goes on top into the multi-interface hot shoe and attaches there and has a shotgun microphone built in, but as well as it's actually a 4-channel audio input with XLR inputs, and sends that, not just like, okay, you then send that out into a separate recorder. It actually can put that into the Sony camera and record it along with the video.
That is, I mean, a huge workflow advantage. I know I would love to have my audio synced with my video as I'm recording it. Saves time in post-production. I think that accessory
you get 2 XLR inputs, as well as it looks like 2 or no, 1. I don't know how they call this.
Yeah, the 4-channel. I'm not seeing the 4 inputs myself.
Oh, I guess maybe you could have a stereo one, is my guess, somehow.
That would make sense.
Maybe the camera microphone. I don't know, something like that. They're doing it some weird way. But it does, that's still 2 XLR inputs is really, that's what most audio recorders like our Tascams or Zoom recorders have. So
do we have pricing on that yet?
That's $600.
Oh,
so a little pricey.
That is not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. I was just clicking on that. I was like, okay, well, maybe a little more expensive than I would have hoped.
You're gonna be holding off on that one.
But if you're considering, okay, that basically is setting you up like, you know, a field broadcast camera or a more expensive cinema camera, right, where you have the XLR inputs right there. So that's pricing the Sony camera up to about $4,200, I think, right? No, $4,100, not including the CF Express cards, because the if we didn't mention already, the a7S III, $3,500. So with that $600, that's $4,100. That's a pretty good price for a camera that has XLR inputs.
It is a very competitive price, especially considering the other options out there. And in my opinion, I just like that the lenses, I guess the lenses that I've been looking at are generally cheaper, and Sony already has a built-out collection of really great lenses to choose from, especially from Sigma, whereas the new Canon cameras, the new RF mount, they don't have those lenses available just yet, so you are spending quite a bit extra, in my opinion, to get the Canon RF glass. And the one thing, I kind of brought it up earlier, but do you see where the camera control dial, well, really the nipple on the back, does that look different to you? Like, it looks like it's just, it looks different to me, where it doesn't look like a joystick, but kind of
more of a rubbery thing.
Yeah, like a rubbery texture. Like, is it touch sensitive? Does it move around?
No, I think it's basically like a joystick, but kind of like just they changed up the design. The interesting thing, speaking of buttons, is the recording button is now in a new spot.
It's a dedicated recording button too. Look at that.
Did you see where they put it?
Right where you would want it.
Yeah, right next to the shutter button. So I think that's, I don't know. The annoying thing for me, honestly, is going between shooting on, like, where I might have, now I'm probably likely, I still have my a7S II. I have now the a7 III as my main shooter. This will become my main video shooter. And I'll likely keep the a7 III for photos because it is higher resolution at 24 megapixels. The annoying thing is that having slightly different controls like that, where, oh, this is where the video thing is on this one, and this is where basically on each of those cameras they move the video record button.
Oh, so because on the A7,
going in between them. Oh yeah, on the a7S II, it's like weirdly on the side with your thumb, and the a7 III, it's like right next to the EVF. So like going in between them, oh my god, I get so confused. There's been many times when I've missed recording because I've stumbled
physically
around.
Missed the button. Yeah, what I did is I made the shutter button start and stop the recording. Yeah, although that has caused problems for me because I've started and stopped it. Like, I meant to half press it to autofocus. I'm so used to doing that in the photo mode. and that will cause problems in video mode.
It'll be interesting to see what the kind of feel is with that button, right?
Yeah, if it's maybe clicky or if it's kind of mushy or what they're going for there.
I'm hoping they make it feel different than the other C buttons that are there, the custom buttons.
I mean, is there anything else we need to cover about this camera? I mean, it's just perfect, basically.
I think we covered pretty much everything. The interesting thing is also now, all right, we had this Canon camera come out, the cameras, come out, and they had overheating like 3-4 days later.
This is a great point.
So what will we find out about this camera that makes it look less, right now we're just like, crushing on it. Like you just saw a attractive person that you like, oh my God, so cute, right? And now we saw this new camera, like, oh, dang, that camera's got it going on. Like, and so what are we going to find out once we do the stalking on their profile that we're like, maybe they're not for us?
Well, for Canon, we found out they had some serious...
They were too hot.
They were too hot. Too hot to touch. Too hot to use.
Exactly.
So what caused me to cancel my R6 pre-order was I found out the R6 would overheat while recording 4K 24 frames per second.
And if it did, it would just explode, right?
And that's just unacceptable. Like, I can't have those kinds of limitations while creating content.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, for this new chick walking down the block, when we check out her profile, are we going to find out any nasty surprises? I feel like I was burned once.
Well, I don't think the overheating, they definitely were clear that that's not going to be an issue. And that makes sense because this is only taking in, a 12 megapixel sensor, and as opposed to 20 or 45 megapixel. So a lot less information being processed, which means that they can take more of it and use it and not be overheating. So that we probably won't see that. However, I do imagine that there are going to be there's always something that comes out, right? It's always too perfect. So like maybe the battery life is like not too good in those higher recording modes or something like that.
I think we have to wait for some tests to see how that performs. But I mean, they don't have, as we know right now, there are no overheating issues. There are no recording limits. They say they have an approximate 60-minute recording time at 4K 60 frames per second. I think the biggest limitation will end up being the storage, because they're only releasing a 160 gig CF Express card.
I think they're releasing an 80 and a 160. But you figure
that's not enough.
But if you have two 160s in there, that's 320.
I see. Not too bad.
Welcome to the world of dual slots.
Dual slots, baby.
And I think what would be actually the way to go would be to have that 160 in one and then get like a 512 gigabyte SDX and put it in the other one and set it to record, the higher stuff that needs to be on that CF Express Type A card to that card slot, and then everything else, photos and everything, to the SDX.
That's smart. Card. And I guess one thing I'm somewhat optimistic for is with the 12 megapixels, I would hope the RAW files and the compressed RAW files would actually be smaller in size, something I noticed from shooting on my A7 III. While there's plenty of resolution, it's delightful to use the images, the file sizes are huge. And so even taking just a couple of photos really eats up space.
Mavic Air 2, the difference between the 48 megapixel and the 12 megapixel is insane.
Really?
In file size. Oh, you can look at, just file size alone. It's like 7 megabytes for the 12 megapixel one, and it's like 25 or 26 often for the 48.
Jeez, yeah, it really adds up. So I'm hopeful that you can still enjoy the fast autofocus, the sharp, crisp images with a little bit less space on this. It's primarily a video camera, but I think that's it. I think that's what you need to know about A7S III.
That's pretty much it. Now, one more thing is there's no one more thing. The thing I was gonna say, the other thing that could change, our reactions and everything, is if some other camera comes out from Sony, from Nikon, from Panasonic. If
GH6.
If Panasonic all of a sudden says, "Oh, GH6 announcement coming out August 6th," hey, that'd be a good. I'm copywriting that idea if I can. I don't know. And but that would and they then drop okay, here's 400 frames per second in HD and 240 in 4K with that same granted it's a micro four thirds, but still that's in the spec wars that could really change the game.
I think for many people the a7S III is going to be the move. It's checking all the boxes for video, and that's why we started out the podcast. We actually have both placed pre-orders for this camera.
Before we were even recording.
We were just, yep, this is it. Independent. I didn't know Gabe. Well, I guess Gabe was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And yesterday I was like, nope, R6 is not doing it for me. Let me see what is going on here. And we actually had a video leak. B&H's video came out a little bit early, and so I was like, yep, this is the move.
And I guess the last thing we didn't mention, though, is that the delivery date, not till September 24th.
Oh,
so
too long.
You got quite a long time for another camera to come out and change your mind.
It's so hard that all of these review units are out. Like I saw Marquez Brownlee tweeting, yep, we used it for our autofocus episode we just shot. Gerald Undone has a fantastic, deep, in-depth video on the a7S III. And these are all like production review units. So these poor YouTubers are like using it. Yep, this is the dream camera. They have to send it back to Sony and then wait until September 24th to continue using their workhorse.
Yeah.
I think either way, I think that's going to be it for this episode. Stay tuned for next episode. We're actually doing a deep dive into cameras. We're talking Sony a7 III versus a7S III. We'll be pulling in more information about the R6 and R5 from Canon, how they compare. And Gabe, of course, has his Go review of the a7 III, which could be the new best, I don't really want to say budget, but a balanced camera for people getting into photography, getting into videography. And I think it's going to be a grand time talking
It's going to
cameras.
be a lot of cameras. Get ready.
A lot of cameras, a lot of tech. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be the next episode. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can follow the show at Pinch to Zoom Pod on Twitter, at Pinch to Zoom Podcast on Instagram. I think that's going to be it. So we look forward to talking to you in the next episode. I'm super excited about this camera. I wish it was here already. All right, that's it. I'm Stetson.
I'm Gabe, already waiting for the a7S IV.
And we look forward to talking to you in the next episode. Yeah, can we quickly talk about how these new CF Express cards is $330 for 160 gigs? I could easily get like a terabyte solid state drive for that. Easy.
Did you pre-order it with the card?
No.
I did. See, that might have been a mistake, but I didn't order the card reader though.
Yeah. That should be the ending of the podcast. Gabe pre-orders camera with card to save $50. Does not order card reader.
Only because I didn't see the card reader, honestly.